All right. As far as I can tell, we're live. I welcome to What Do You Think? Just give a bit of time. The different streams start up. So I'm trying something a bit different tonight. I've finally been able to stream to my What Do You Think Facebook page. I'm still streaming to my Nick Phillips Facebook page because I'm hoping that some of the people who follow me there will see this and actually join on. Not streaming to Nick and Tuffy page tonight, but we are also streaming to the Rumble page. Now, the Rumble page, you'll see the link in the things I send out today, but the if you search for NIKP888, that's what that page is called on Rumble. And eventually I want to get to the point where I'm just streaming to the What Do You Think Nick Facebook page and the Rumble page and the YouTube page. But I've got to figure out how to let everybody know how this sort of stuff will work. So it's going to take some time. But anyway, it's I couldn't be bothered shaving tonight. The bloke I'm talking to, he's a bit rough and ready too. So, you know, I'll just sort of say I'd stay very casual for him. But tonight, it's actually a bit of an honor to be speaking to this bloke. He's been an inspiration to me. He's we're trying to work out before, but we met each other probably about 30 plus years ago through music. He used to come and hear me play at Her Majesty's Bar in Brisbane. And his adult life, he's had some, I don't know what you call it these days, but, you know, some disabilities he's worked through. And every time I catch up with him, he's just like great to catch up with. He's just like a good guy. And I really love the chance to catch up with him. Now, I found out yesterday, so the guy's name's Greg Coulson. I found out for the first time yesterday, his nickname as a young kid growing up in Maryborough was, well, not a young kid, but a young adult growing up in Maryborough was Harry Hotwheels, because apparently the way he drove and the cars he had. Anyway, I'm going to bring him in now. Harry Hotwheels, coming on board, mate. How you doing?
Hey, g'day, Nick.
Where's Harry?
Oh, did you want Harry?
Who are you?
Reggie the Weekend Rapper.
Oh, Reggie the... You're a rap dude.
Yeah, mate. Yeah. I do the rap.
What type of rap do you do?
Oh, you know, just the best kind.
What's the best kind?
My kind.
So Reggie, you've had a wild career, have you?
Well, yeah, mate. Yeah. It's been a fairly, I've been rapping for a long time, and I've done 2 songs, you know. So, yeah.
Oh, 2 songs. You must have lots of hot chicks hanging around you all the time. Then.
Oh, yeah, mate, all the time. Yeah, can't get rid of them.
Mate, this is a look I've never seen on you before. Surprisingly.
Yeah. Well, actually,
take that wig off, man. Where's Harry I want to meet Harry Hotwheels.
All right, man. I'll get Harry for you. Oops, I'm dropping stuff everywhere.
Look at that bling, mate. You're going to be worth an absolute fortune when the dollar crashes and all goes gold-based.
Hang on, I'll get this like this.
Look, that's the economy of Australia around you.
Really heavy.
Yeah.
Really heavy plastic.
Oh my goodness. Oh, there's Harry Hotwheels.
Harry, mate.
Yeah, mate. So it's been 24 hours plus a bit more that I've known you as Harry. And it's Harry Hotwheels. Yeah. How did that come about?
It was actually in Mara. We moved from Maryborough to Mara. And my first car was a HR Holden.
Okay.
And, I had the big chromies on it and triple carbies. And but that was back in the day where cars they're doing a lot of, I don't know what you call it, the paint work, the artwork on cars and stuff like that.
Did you have a Sandman?
No, but I did have a HQ panel van.
Okay, so you had a shaggin' wagon.
I did, mate. It was the coolest car. I bought it off one of the coolest guys in town. when he wanted to sell it. It was a HQ, and it was a 308 4-speed, and it had exhaust system, 2 Lukey mufflers, and the pipes come out just behind each front wheel, and it sounded awesome. I mean, it wasn't overly loud, but it just sounded awesome. I loved it.
Mate,
I guess that's
it's so amazing when you drive around the roads today and you see someone in those classic cars from that vintage. I'm not talking about going way back, but that vintage, you just can't help but stare at them and think, oh, how good do they look? And everything was like workable back then. You didn't need to plug in a computer to get things working, right? You could always fix up your car in some way. Well, not me. I knew where to put the petrol in and where to pay the mechanic. But for you dudes who were into cars and how they worked, it must have been heaven to be working on those cars.
Yeah, I guess I was never really that good at it, to be honest. I was a mechanic by trade before my accident.
Oh, really? I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah, but I always wanted to be a panel beater spray painter. So there's a bit of a story with that as well, because I'd gone to the Ford dealership in Bella, and they'd agreed to hire me as an apprentice panel beater, spray painter, one of those, I don't know, back in the day. And my folks actually rang the Ford dealership and told them no, I wouldn't be starting, because I'd got an apprenticeship out the Marra mine as a mechanic. And so I did my apprenticeship as a mechanic. But then, I mean, later on, I moved to Brisbane when I was about, I think 20, 21. And I came down here and I had a few jobs as a mechanic. I worked at Ampol Station in Maruka, sort of working on cars, doing service and pumping gas. And then I worked at a Gem engines. There used to be Gem reconditioned engines out at Maruka as well, and out of Magic Mile, fitting engines. And then I went working as a builder's labourer, because I kind of enjoyed the outdoorsy thing, and there was better money anyway. And I was working as a builder's labourer, and then I was playing football as well. I played football for Brothers under 23s, and I went over there because I had a friend of mine come down from Mara as well, and he was a bit of a superstar. He played fullback for Brothers A grade, so that's why I went over to Brothers as well. But I was only playing under 23s, and then we played every Saturday, and then I started playing commercial rugby league as well on Sundays. So I was playing Saturday and Sunday. I was training Tuesday and Thursday with Brothers, and Wednesday with commercial rugby league.
And so life was footy and cars, basically, mate.
It was, mate. And through the commercial rugby league, I think the manager of Pips nightclub in Elizabeth Street in Brisbane. You'd probably remember Pips, wouldn't you?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I took a story. Oh, what's his name? Oh. He was involved with the Whiskey Go-Go stuff as well.
Johnny Bell.
Johnny Bell. There you go, mate. Here's my Johnny Bell story. It was like really, we must have been like first band about 18 years old, right? Somewhere around there. Nick Phillips and the Waves, we were called back. No, it wasn't Nick Phillips, just the Waves we were called, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we got booked to play. Or was it Early Corporation? Oh, I can't remember, but we got booked to play at Pips. And mate, back in those days, every band had like a 6-ton truck, 8-ton truck of gear.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a matter of taking in a few speakers and setting up. You had 3-man road crew. It took you about 3 hours to set up for a show.
Yeah.
Anyway, we were in the alleyway behind Pips, and we're supposed to start at like, I don't know, 7 o'clock, whatever it was. And they opened the doors at 6 o'clock for us to get our gear in. Yeah. And we're like loading our gear in and everything. And the boss of the place, John Bell, he was like telling us, better hurry up. We're about to open the doors. We're like, we can't be ready by that time. We just simply can't be ready. Well, if you can't be ready, get the hell out of here. And now the words are used, and get out of here. And this went on for a while. We were trying our best. And we didn't know who this guy was. And in the end, he was like, are you ready to go? We're like, no, we're not ready to go. Get out of here. So we got out of there. We packed up and left. And when we left, we found out who this guy was. And we're sitting back we were at the road crew's house. We were sitting there thinking, what have we done? Who have we upset? Is anyone outside there? We were terrified. That was our, nothing happened to us, of course. But,
I never heard till much later on. Sorry, I never heard till much later on about his connection there, because I only knew him from the nightclub, and he was actually the manager of our the commercial rugby football club.
There you go.
Yeah, and so he invited me into work behind the bar at Pips. He said, come in and just, and do some and learn bar work and just try it out. And I did that for a week or two. And then he said, yeah, would you like to work here for a couple? So then I added to my day job as a builder's labourer, 2 games of footy on the weekend, plus 3 nights a week training. I started doing 2 nights a week behind the bar at Pips, Friday and Saturday nights behind the bar in Pips.
Mate, I admire guys who've got the car stories you've got too, because my story, my kids took forever to get their licenses. They just didn't rush to get it. Me, the day I could get my learners, I got it. The day I could get my license, I got it. And I'd saved up. I was never into cars as such. To me, it was like a way to get from A to B. And across my life, the most thing I've done in my life is actually driving. And so I should be more into them. But the first car I had, I bought off my mum. I saved up and got the son's discount deal on a car from my mum. And it was one of those little Cortinas. It was like silver and grey and shaped like a box.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it, mate. Gear stick happening, had all that happening. And I couldn't wait to get that car going. And I did. And but even... obviously, we were traveling from all the time doing band work from then, going from Cairns to Brisbane to Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, and just doing that circuit all the time. So lots of driving. But when I did my first album in Los Angeles, we spent a few years there and had to have side jobs, doing stuff over there. And I worked as a limo driver in LA, driving the town cars around the place, mate. And that was actually pretty cool. It was, I didn't work. It wasn't a party company. It was a small company that just did high-end people. And I drove around the B-52s, drove around Vanessa Williams' husband, or one guy, I've forgotten his name now, Noel Stanley or something. He was the head of Treasury for the Nixon government, head of the Fed Treasury. And I was kind of working semi-illegally. I was able to buy my visa. I was supposed to be able to work in the music industry and things through my management. So I kind of set this up. I was getting paid through my management to be driving, And I just got to meet these amazing people. One of them I did, I was actually driving the head of, was Exxon, or one of those big oil companies. I was driving the chairman around to this major event they were having at the Santa Monica Civic Center. And I'm driving in kind of semi-illegally with the chairman of the company in the back of the car. And there's all these guards and CIA dudes or whoever they were with machine guns all around the place. And here's semi-illegal Nick driving the chairman of the company up to the front door. It's I didn't have a big thing with cars, but I had a lot of good things with driving. But, mate, your football journey obviously led to, a major thing in your life. And you had an injury. I'll let you. Are you happy to talk about that injury? Or?
Yeah, sure. Actually, we're discussing some things today. I had an appointment about some new sort of physical therapy using robotics, and had to sort of go through the old injury and what happened and when and all that. But basically, I left Brisbane. I started pre-season training with brothers in 1980, and that's the year Wayne Bennett came over. So that was pretty cool. We all started training as a big group pre-season, and then I decided I was going back to Central Queensland. So
was he like a? I know wasn't Wayne Bennett of now, but was he like an icon coming over at that time?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't really remember because I didn't really know him or who he was or what he did. I didn't really know much about those guys at the top end, but all I knew that my mate Andrew that played there, he was sort of touted as, a Queensland player and a potential future Australian player, but I think, busting shoulders and stuff, never really got that far, but he was a pretty awesome player. So anyway, I went back up to Central Queensland and was working up there. And so from my experience at Pips nightclub, I was working at the Coal and Cattle Hotel in Mara, serving beers, and believe it or not, I was wine waiter, so I used to have the little bow tie and serving people there, plus do a bit of work in the bars. And then the guy that was managing the pub at the time, he was a big footy fan as well, because I hadn't intended to play football when I went up there. And Graham Kong was the name of the guy, and he so he wanted me to play football. So he was involved with the club, I think, and I'm not sure what level he was, but like he like really wanted me to play football there. And the other guy, I was working at the panel shop as well, and he was involved with the footy club as well. And so I ended up playing football, and you sort of came up today that I wasn't actually even supposed to be playing that day because my ankles were really bad. I hadn't trained all week, and the coach at the time, he was a captain coach, Dickie Smith, and he said, just do the run before the game and play the game. And
what position did you play?
Well, I was playing 5'8". Early on, I played wing, and then I was playing fullback. And down in Brisbane, I was playing fullback, and then I went to 5'8" with commercial rugby league, and that's where I wanted to play. And so when I went back up there, I think I played. It was kind of a bit my dream, really, because I went back up to Mara, and I played, I think, one game in reserve grade, and I went pretty well. And then I remember Dickie Smith pulling me aside, and he said, "So." They picked me in A grade, and I played on the wing, and I think I had another pretty good game. And then the coach said to me, "So you want to play 5'8", huh?" And he put me in 5'8", and I think he gave me some lessons and do this and don't do that and whatever, or you won't stay there, But I played 5'8" until my accident. And on that particular day, this is sort of sidetracking a little bit, I had another friend, Kerry, who from Aaron, she was actually involved in a car accident, and she became a paraplegic from that accident. And the story was that her dad worked at the mine. He was a shift manager, and she wouldn't go out anywhere in a wheelchair. She just sort of stayed at home and wouldn't go out. And I got along pretty well with her mum. And so that particular day, I had an old HR panel van that I was in the process of doing up as well. So I went around to their house and I picked her up, and she was sitting in my car by herself watching the game. And they were happy I got her out of the house when I had my accident. And I believe she was hysterical because I ended up in her position, basically. Like, she was sitting in my car by herself. I was laying on the ground for like quite a long time while I went and found a doctor and got a special stretcher and that, because I figured they couldn't move me. And a friend of mine had to go and I think get the car and drive her home. And later on, only like many years later, I found she said she like cried for 2 weeks or something, Yeah. And so it was pretty traumatic time for her as well. But I ended up, they took me to the Mara hospital, figured I had a spinal injury. And so I went by ambulance to the Thangul airport. Dad came with me, and they flew me down to Brisbane. And I kind of vaguely remember the trip in the ambulance from the airport to the hospital. And I remember the stuff that they did, and I don't know. I don't know what you want to know about, man. It's
up to you what you want to talk about, man. I don't want you to go anywhere uncomfortable, but I
well,
think
it's not
your
it's not uncomfortable.
your story to me is inspirational in that you could be bitching and moaning about life, mate, but I've never known you to do that. I'm sure you go through your dark days and the hard times and all that. Every time I've been with you, you're always just, you're more complaining about how hard the music industry is.
Well, when I had the accident, I remember this was like a long time ago, and they don't do the same process now, but because my spinal was dislocated, so I was fairly stable. So to try and maintain as much movement as they could, they wanted to keep me stable. So back in the days, they drilled holes in the side of your head, and they put tongs in the side of your head, and they figured out how much weight to hang off the back of your head to keep your spine straight, and they put you in a rotor bed. So you're 4 hours looking up, 4 hours looking down, 4 hours looking up, 4 hours looking down. I was in that for 3 months, and they put a mirror on the floor so that when people come to visit you could look in the mirror and kind of see them,
So and please, if I go the wrong way with questions here, just avoid them. I don't need to do it. But from an outsider looking in, being in that type of situation, I can't imagine how I would mentally deal with that, being not knowing what was the outcome was and being 4 hours this way, 4 hours that way. How did you cope?
Well, I guess the first few months was like I didn't really accept it. I just thought that I would walk one day, and so I eventually got out of the tongs and started doing some rehab, and so originally I was paralyzed from the chest down, and I remember one night, because I'm strapped flat, I can't move, I can't sit up, and I could feel a tingling or like a movement in my big toe on my left foot, and I don't know, like late at night, I'm singing out to the nurse, 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 and she's going, nurse comes, she's going, what? And I said, my big toe, it's moving, and she looks and she's going, no, it's not, nothing's moving.
That was your mind doing it?
No. And it was only a matter of a few days later. It was like a flicker. And it was only a matter of a few days later that you could actually see my big toe moving. I could move it,
Okay. Yeah.
And then gradually I got a bit back in my left side, my left leg, and the right leg really didn't follow suit, So did all the rehab stuff and 8 months in there, and I got out of hospital. I lived in a unit because when I had my accident, the mines up there on strike. So Dad had just started like pretty much a 16-week strike. So Dad stayed down here, and Mum and my sister came down, and a friend of the family actually drove Mum and my sister down that night. That's from Marin, so it's a big drive. So he drove them down, dropped them off, went home. That was a mate's father, and so Mum and my sister stayed down here. My sister got a job at the Junction Hotel at Annerley, and so Mum was up every day for a long time, and there was a lot of stuff. Mum tells me more stuff than I remember. Apparently, they told her there'd be times when I'd be aggro and I'd tell her to get out and stuff like that, and she said that's true, that's what happened, and so she'd go home for a day and then she'd come back again, because hospital food, I don't know if it's any better now, but back then it wasn't that great. Mum used to cook and bring a meal up every day, and I don't know, like when I got out of hospital, I moved into a unit with my sister in Annerley, tried to get a job, couldn't get a job, and I got in contact with the mine, Mara Mine, and they said, sure, we'll give you a job. So I went back up, and then I'd agreed to go back up, and I just thought, oh yeah, they're just looking after the poor cripple, and so there was a guy that was doing this job. He was doing the payroll, and he was like the maintenance clerk for the underground mine, and then all of a sudden they gave him a hurry up. This guy was changed into another job, and they wanted me up there ASAP to do the job. So I went up there and I did that. I did that for a while, and there were a lot of up and down. That was a very emotional time, and there were times when they were pretty dark, and eventually I don't think I've ever told you, but before I had my accident, when I was working as a builder's labourer, one day we come back in the truck back to the workshop at West End, and there's this dude in a wheelchair in the workshop welding and stuff. And we became really close mates. So we used to go out drinking together, and I'd go over to his place. He'd come to football and watch me play, and Bishop Kevin. And I remember my mum told me that they had to ring him and tell him that I'd had an accident, and he was pretty devastated. He was like his best able-bodied mate, and so I ended up in hospital. So anyway, when I went back to Mara, I worked up there for a few years, and Mum and Dad retired. Dad was 60 and retired. They went to Harvey Bay, and then I used to go to Brisbane a little bit. I had another friend there, Mark, and he had his girlfriend down in Brisbane. So we used to drive down every second week, and I'd stay at Kevin's place in Brisbane. And these guys, other wheelies, and these guys were playing basketball, and they were going out social events, and they were having parties all the time. And it seemed like a really good life. And up in Mara, I felt like I was pretty much the only one in a wheelchair up there, and everywhere I went, I was just a spectator. I couldn't participate. And so I think 84, I decided to come back down to Brisbane and live. And the first weekend I got off the bus here, the next, like a day or two later, we're up at Harry's Hut camping in a group up the North Coast. And then I remember my mate Kevin, they bought a brand new Nissan Patrol 4-wheel drive, and off we were to Harvey Bay, over to Fraser Island. And he's driving around this brand new 4-wheel drive, and lantanas getting scratched up the side, and and like the next week we're trying to polish all these scratches out. But it just seemed that life was better. I started playing a bit of wheelchair basketball and did some stuff like that, and that really, I think, improved life a lot. You know, you felt
So
more involved.
if you go out drinking one night and you're in your wheelchair and you get pissed, again, you get breathalyzed for being drink wheelchair driver.
Oh man, let me tell you, this is a really funny story. Okay, there was one when I was still in hospital. Right, you could actually get passes and go out, and I was really friendly with a couple of people. And one of the nursing sisters there wanted to take me out drinking that night, right? And she had an old Falcon panel van on an XA or B or something like that.
Here comes the
And
panel
so,
van stories.
oh man, and we were down under the motorway somewhere, and she was driving, and she was like out of the car throwing up, and I've gone around the side of the car to help her, and the coppers pulled up behind us, and it's like, oh no, we're done. And the copper said, "You guys all right?" I said, yeah, we're good, we're fine. He said, "You don't look fine." I said, no, we're good. He said, "You better be." And we jumped back in the car and drove off and drove back to the hospital, I think. It's like, that was so good, you know. But, yeah.
Mate, well, then of course your life changed, where I think you got a job working for the Mines Office and Ministry of Mines, Department, and you started hanging out at bars like Her Majesty's, and you met some down and out musicians around the place like myself. And,
I just used to work, I think it was Margaret Street in the city, and went to Her Majesty's, and I used to go to the movies. There was a Hoyt's movie cinema there. I'd go to the movies sometimes, and I went down to Her Majesty's, and there's this guy singing down there, and I thought, geez, this guy's pretty good, and it turned out, like, after that, with friends and stuff as well, that I don't know if you remember, like, you know, usually a group, I'd come and see you, or with someone else, or there'd be a few people I'd come along. It was like on the weekend, it was like, where's Nick Phillips playing? Okay, that's where we're going. Stafford Tavern, all over the place.
And mate, then we, as we got to know each other, I discovered you were into music as well. What stage did you get into playing?
Somewhere around that era, around the time I met you, I was working. I was training at the Sporting Wheelies gym at Newstead, and there was another guy training in there. Didn't have a disability, but anyone could go in there. And it turns out he was a drummer with a band, and he. You know, and I used to fancy myself as a bit of a songwriter. I was just writing lyrics, you know.
Mate, you are a songwriter. Don't fancy yourself. You are a songwriter, mate.
I was pretty much tone deaf and couldn't play anything. And I remember buying a guitar and getting a few lessons, and then I put that in the corner. That's no good. And so I kept writing the words. And I remember Marty. I'd talking to him in the gym, and he said, "Oh, let's get together." So we got together, and he played guitar, and basically the words, he created a song out of it. And he had a little old, I think it was a Tascam, little 4-track recorder and stuff, you know. And so we started recording some stuff, and then I think at that time, you know, I sort of read stuff about the 60s and music back in the day, and songwriters, and basically songwriters were the go, and these artists just recorded other people's songs. Like there was an artist who sang, someone else would write the songs and stuff like that. And Elton John and Bernie Taupin had this thing where Bernie Taupin write the words and Elton would create these hit songs. And I'm going, how easy is this? And so it kind of developed from there, and I decided that I wanted to learn more, so I tried to get into Kotar. You heard of Kotar? That was in South Brisbane. That was a music school they started up, and did the interview, and I got in on the engineering side of things. You know, played some tapes and stuff that we'd done, and got in there as doing the sound engineering side. So I think it was a group of basically, I'm not sure how many, whether it was 50-50 or what, but there was sound engineering, and there was sound, you know, musicians that studied there, and they had a really neat recording studio, and so we got to mix together, and we got to write songs and record some songs and stuff. And I must have had this entrepreneurial thing back then, because I put out a CD called Student Body, and that was a collaboration of all the songs that the people there wrote. Everyone wanted to do it, and so we did that. And then one of the guys from there had a manager and he got a deal or something, and then this guy said, "You're not authorized. You can't do that." So all the boxes of CDs of Student Body just got trashed. I think couldn't put it out, and from there, I guess I stumbled on Duncan Wood at World Record Studios in Brisbane, and I started helping Duncan out at the studio. I was helping out the front office and did some recording, some stuff that I was doing. He helped me with. So I started to play a little bit of guitar, and I'd run the bones of a song by him, and then he would tidy it up and do all the programming and music. And sometimes we had live musos, that we knew or people knew, and put some songs together. And not long after that, Oliver rented a space out the back of that with his studio, Oliver Jones, and so it's just
of course Oliver's brother Daniel had a little bit of success with a little act called Savage Garden, right?
That's right. Yeah,
I got to support Savage Garden in their real when that stuff was just starting to break. They did a show at the Piazza at South Bank, and my band and I were the support act. So we got to hang out with them and meet them that day, which is really cool. And that really wasn't that long after they were dudes working in the music shop at Woodridge, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And I actually remember at World Record Studios, Darren Hayes come in one day. This was before, I think before they might have been recording or before they had the deal or whatever, but they were working on the demos and stuff. And Darren come in and he said, because I'd done a video clip, and I think it was a compilation. Actually, Jacinta sang it, I think, and we recorded it, the video at the Newmarket Hotel, and that went on distribution. Remember the pubs used to get a distribution tape with video clips and stuff.
No, I didn't. I don't, but that's cool.
Yeah. So anyway, Darren come into the studio one day and he said, "I saw your video clip at the pub," and I told him, "I know that guy." And it's like, it's funny, because then not long after that, he's a superstar, It was pretty funny.
Right. Jacinta, Iron Maiden, that was her. No, Iron Maiden. Maiden Voyage, that was her band. They were all girl band, except the drummer and Robbie. And her and Greg Dodds, they actually started Oz Music here,
that's
here in
right.
Queensland. Yeah, which wanted to be Q Music.
That's
which
how I met
Q Music
Jacinta.
hasn't. Yeah, Jacinta and I had, I don't think you mind saying, we had a very, very brief catch up together where we were very young in different bands and everything, but it was like a thing in between relationships, and it was like she was just a really nice person, and it's one of those things where we both come out of a rough relationship, and we just had this really brief time where we realized, that's how people should treat each other. And she was great like that, and she was a really nice person and has made some great music. I think she's still living in the States these days. I'm not sure.
Yeah, as far as I know. I think,
but between them and the boys in Savage Garden and Oliver, Oliver's every bit as talented as his brother, if not more, if you don't mind me saying. But that's just the way all the cards fall, mate. There's the difference between the musicians who make it really, really big and those who kind of make it part way. Come down to many things and soften some dark forces along the way that might get involved in the whole thing. But you and I could go down the rabbit holes together, which we do offline sometime very, very often. But mate, getting back to
I was going to just say a funny thing about Oliver, because Oliver and I were working together, and Oliver used to help me write songs. I'd play the bones of it, and then Oliver would make it into something fantastic,
Yeah.
And I remember at one point I had a little recording set up in my unit over in Clayfield, and Oliver said, you should really get together with Daniel and write some songs, because he can do the music and you can do the words and stuff like that. And I've gone, I didn't say anything, but I'm going, man, you're the talented one. Because they were in a band together at the time, and they were almost on the verge.
So you could have been half of Savage Garden, is what you're saying?
Well, no, not half, but maybe I could have contributed to a couple of smash hits or something and got a little bit of a kickback. I don't know.
You could have been the good look. You could have been the good-looking guy in Savage Garden.
Never happened, mate. Never happened.
I reckon I could see Reggie in there.
yeah. Well, that's how. I think that's kind of through this process is how I got more involved with you, because I loved your voice. Loved it and still do. And I was writing songs, and I was looking for, and then I thought, okay, I'll do something like, because I had all these other people helping me, and musicians and singers and stuff like that helping me finish songs that I wasn't doing a very good job of. And then I thought, okay, Alan Parsons Project. I've got the Coulson Project. I put all this stuff together, all these awesome people doing awesome work, and we'll put it out under the name of Coulson Project. And I think I did one album of that, and through writing songs, if you probably have a bit of an idea of what you want, and things weren't always turning out the way I wanted. They're probably a lot better, but it still wasn't what I wanted. And so through that process, I decided that I would try hard to learn a bit of guitar, and I would try to sing, and my singing was very, very limited. And so I did, I think you mistakenly got me up on stage to sing a song at the Hamo one night. And I think I almost got booed off the stage. And
sure not,
because my pitch wasn't that great. And so anyway, so you did a few songs for me. I still listen to some of those songs, and the job you did, it's just awesome.
Thank you.
I love some of those songs.
Was music? Yeah, I mean, I know you. Let's say you've got a personality where you handle your journey. And what they call it, is it disabilities they call it these days, or what they call it?
Disability.
Disability. Did music play a part in managing that at all, or is that just a separate thing?
No, not really. I guess. Well, we didn't. Did we finish? Like I got spear tackle in rugby league, so I ended up in a wheelchair. And
go back there,
so,
tell the story.
Yeah. So then, music wise, I used to listen. I can't remember a lot of the 70s stuff that I liked. Cat Stevens, and I was. A friend of mine that I grew up with as a kid, we were next door neighbours until they moved away, and his dad moved down here to be a bus driver. And Ken, he was into John Mellencamp. He introduced me to this guy, Johnny Cougar, and I'd never heard of before. And I started listening to Johnny Cougar, and all of a sudden I'm a mad keen Johnny Cougar fan, and a John Cougar Mellencamp fan, and then a John Mellencamp fan. And so I listened to his stuff, and it was like, I just loved it so much. And sometimes I felt like he's written that song for me. And he could have written that. I could have, if I was any good, I could have written that song. And it got to the stage where, whenever the next Mellencamp album come out, you just go and buy it. You wouldn't even listen to it. Yeah, you go and buy it, and you go home, and I'd put it on the player, and I'd get the booklet out, the lyrics, and I'd just sit down and I'd go through I'd read the lyrics, I'd sing the song, I'd learn them all, and that's what it was kind of like. And I guess,
can I just interrupt with one other thing? My John Mellencamp story. I was at the time being managed by Jamie Dunn.
Yeah.
And Mellencamp was touring through Brisbane. I was a regular on a thing called Saturday Morning Jukebox that we'd do stuff. Anyway, so Jamie get tickets for everything, and we got tickets to go see Mellencamp. And I went with Jamie, and we got to go backstage and meet them backstage. And Mellencamp was shorter than me. And I was so excited when I got to shake his hand and realized he was shorter than me. That was a big moment for me. Being as short as I am.
Yeah. I met Jamie a couple of times when he was with the radio station.
105 and all that trip.
No, after that at the country music station.
Oh, okay. Yeah. He's 98.9.
Yeah, that's right. 9.9. So I went over there and I did a couple of interviews with him. I think they played a couple of songs, and so through the process.
For those who don't know, Jamie was a TV producer, but he also was the hand and the creative force behind Agro, who was probably Australia's greatest TV personality of all time.
Yeah, that's right. So I mean, that was interesting, and then I just through that, you did some stuff with me, and I remember there was a couple of artists from the Sunshine Coast came down and did vocals for me at someone's place, and Oliver and another artist did a duet for me, and stuff that sounded really good. And I just wanted to, it wasn't as good, but I wanted to do stuff myself, even though I was limited. And so I started trying hard with that. I remember doing a bit of work with Duncan in World Records, and later on out at the bunker out at up near Morayfeld where he was. And one day in the studio, I think I was trying to do something. They told me I couldn't sing to save my life. And I'm going, Oh no, really?
Thanks, Duncan.
That bloody auto tune's ripping, bud, isn't it?
That's the problem, mate. When the producer's your friend, they like say stuff that you. When the producer's working with someone who's not a friend and they just got to invoice them, the whole approach changes. When the producer's your friend who doesn't really care, you're probably doing you a favor. They say stuff that is far too. They don't like. He wouldn't have meant it that way. He was just getting you to the point, mate. That phrase you're doing was totally wrong.
No, he meant I couldn't sing
like,
my life, mate.
No. I know he's doing it.
But I'll tell you another interesting thing. There, back when I was going to Qatar, that was like a 12-month period. I went to Qatar, and I quit my job at the mines department so I could do this full-time study course for 12 months. And through that process, somewhere towards the end, as a group, we all went to South Bank because Keith Urban was playing there.
Oh yeah, okay, cool.
So we all went and saw Keith Urban play, and I think Keith did a couple of songs, and then he said the guitarist Alan's gonna do a song for you now, and Alan did "Baby Blue" by Graham Bonnet.
Yeah, and Alan had such this great voice, man. It's amazing,
man.
He has such a great voice.
That just blew me away. I'm sitting there thinking, why the hell would Keith Urban let that guy sing? And it was only later.
Mate, three magic words. The whole thing with Rusty. That lineup was so good. And look, Keith took his shot, and he's done absolutely brilliantly. And he hung out in Nashville and made the right decisions and survived.
Yeah.
But the people who worked around him, from management through to everything else, man, they were world players. That was so many. I say the people who make it and the people who don't, it's just a thin line between the way the cards fall,
And that was, by the way, that was my initial reaction to Keith Urban. Like, he was good, but then this guy Alan comes out, and if you've heard Alan sing "Baby Blue," I mean, it just goes off.
He's brilliant.
And I really like a lot of Keith's stuff, and I'm really happy for the success he had because he worked really hard for it too, And then I'd met Alan a few times at World Record Studios, and I didn't know.
Sorry, guys, we're talking about Alan Cameron, by the way.
Alan Cameron.
Sorry, Alan Cameron. So, like, an absolutely brilliant artist. Yeah.
And I didn't know this guy. I met him, Alan, at the studio, and then I don't know how long it was before I tweaked. That's the guy that sang "Baby Blue." So I did a lot of work with Alan as well, because there's a few songs even now that Lek really likes, and when one that I wrote called "Want to See Some Changes," and I remember hacking around with it at home, and I was mucking around with this EAD thing, and I was trying to get a little rocky E thing going, like a little riff thing going, and I played it to Alan, and he just turned it into something awesome. So, it's about society and not being happy with what's going on in the world. And that's way back then. And then Alan does this really nice guitar work on it. And still now, whenever, like, I've got a USB stick in the car, a whole bunch of music, and that song comes on, my missus wants to turn it up, turn it up.
Mate, talk about the missus, Lex. You mentioned her. She's a lovely Thailand lady who you brought out to a few of my gigs, and mate, you spent quite a bit of time in Thailand in the recent years, right?
Yeah, I did. I started off. I don't know how I had friends or something that had traveled doing sport and stuff, and people talked about Thailand, and so I went over there for a couple of holidays, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, there was one place and a lot of bars and stuff, right? And it's almost like an open square bar where you're sitting around the bar and you're looking at the ocean, and they always played really cool music. Like, whenever I hear certain songs, I think about sitting at that bar, drinking, looking at the beach. And Shakira was a big thing then. And there was a few others.
Mate, shaking your hips was an issue, I guess, was it?
I don't know.
And for people who want to get offended by that, I can say that joke to Greg, and he would just like laugh it off, and he'll throw something back at me. Often he'll be coming to a gig of mine, and Greg does have the ability to get out of his chair and sit on a bar stool, and there'll be an empty wheelchair sitting there. And I'm saying, look what people will do to, like, get a handicap parking. Yeah, we'll say things like that between mates as friends. He will laugh at me and tell me I'm an idiot. And mate, am I fair to say that's okay that we make those jokes because we actually it's out of respect? It's not out of making fun.
No. So it's all good. And Yeah, you know, so I don't know where we're going. I could tell you a couple of not so funny stories about a quick one, mate. So my friend Kevin that I used to hang out, we used to go to the Sunnybank Tavern a lot, and there was a couple of mates used to go with, and I had a Commodore wagon, and like you said, I can stand up. So this guy, my friend that I couldn't, he couldn't, but I obviously transferred in the car. So him and I in the car, we pull up at the Sunnybank. I get out of the car, hang on to the roof of the side of the car, and get around to the back of the car. I pulled his chair out and pushed it up the left-hand side to him, and he gets out of the car into the chair. I pull my chair out and I sit in my chair, and we go into the Sunnybank, right? So we go in, and the guys at the door, there was usually like a fee to get in. They say, "Oh, you guys are right, go in." So we're sitting at the bar having a drink, and the bouncers come over and kick us out. Going, what? Well, they said we were faking being in wheelchairs. Some girl saw us get out of the car and said we could walk. And it's like, I couldn't walk out of sight on a dark night, And it's like, I couldn't take 2 or 3 steps away from the car. I'm hanging onto the car to get around to open the cargo to get swear at. Oh man, that was crazy.
Mate, talk about Sunnybank Hotel. I back in the day, you used to have big bands play there. Like Dragon played there, and Pseudo. What's her name? Pseudo Echo.
All
they
right.
played there.
Yep.
I supported with my band Dragon and Pseudo Echo at that place. Now you would think doing those type of supports and being that environment that it would be pretty glamorous. The dressing rooms for those gigs were the male toilets. The urinals in the male toilets were the dressing room at the Sunnybank Hotel. And I also remember playing there supporting the Sunny Boys, and Jeremy from the Sunny Boys would come into by that time, they'd organized a room outside before we actually played the gig. And Jeremy kept coming in and pinching our beers, which was not unusual. I actually recording in Los Angeles at Cherokee Studio. We were recording in one room, and Gene Simmons from Kiss was producing Lita Ford in the studio next door, and he would steal beers from our fridge in the studio next door, and so that's my connection to those type of superstars. So it's not as glamorous as they think, mate, and so getting kicked out of a bar because they think you're pretending to be disabled.
And the crazy thing was that they said you're pretending to be in wheelchairs to pick up chicks. And I'm going, these guys got rocks in their head. Who's going to pretend to be in a wheelchair to pick? I mean, come on, man.
Mate, these days, imagine the money you could make out of the lawsuit against them these days.
Yeah. I guess burden of proof, I suppose. But
which would we often talk about where the world's at now.
Yeah.
A time back then where you kind of just wore it, and whether you got kicked out or you stayed in there, you got in the car and went home, whatever, to these days where you probably would get lawyers wanting to sue everybody. Which would you prefer?
Back in the day, man.
Back in the day,
honestly, yeah.
It's like the Sam Kerr thing. The Sam Kerr thing, mate, where they're talking about she made a flippant remark to a cop when she was drunk in Britain. I mean, the British police just should grow some balls, really. It's just like ridiculous that we get reduced to such crap, and people have such thin skins that they can't accept that someone's had a few drinks, they say something stupid. Mate, this cop's not going to go through any trauma. She called him a stupid white bee, and
wow.
that's what they're and it's like terrible. It'll go through the court things, and apparently it's a maximum 2-year sentence if it happens for calling someone that, and it's like, just kind of get over it. Like, someone's drunk, they say something stupid, that's been our life,
People are getting locked up for posts on Facebook now, apparently, in some places, some countries. So no, I much prefer the problem. The problem is, I think, and it's kind of like what I wrote one of my songs about, and back then was about someone gets drunk at a bar and they drive home and something goes wrong, and all of a sudden some lawyer gets the idea that we sued the owner of the bar because they served you too many drinks. It's like nobody wants to take responsibility for their own actions anymore. They want to blame
exactly.
someone else, not my fault.
Exactly. If you're stupid enough to put people's lives in risk and getting behind the steering wheel when you're drunk, that's your issue. It's not no one else's issue. And I think in so many things in this world today, it's we've lost the sense of that personal responsibility, and everyone's looking for an easy way out. Mate, I saw it when I was doing my stuff I did in China, where sadly so many Australians I work with were all looking for the easy way to do stuff. They wanted the cheap way to do stuff. They didn't really want to put money behind anything, or they didn't want to, put effort behind it. They just wanted the cheap way and the easy way. And I think that's where we're at with a lot of things in society. Mate, when we go down that road with what happened in the music industry and COVID, and we'll call that the dark age. It's probably not a discussion to have on Facebook because I don't know what they allow. But sometime when I get the numbers up, I'd love for us to get together on a Rumble stream, just a pure Rumble stream, and talk about the things we've experienced and discovered and our friends have gone through. Because it's challenging times at the moment, and I think the times are going to get tougher. But it doesn't mean we have to give up. You have to. If you're going to get sick, you have to get sick and go through the hard times to get better. And I think that's kind of where we are at the moment in many ways.
Yeah, sure.
So that's probably, mate, you and I could talk about the tinfoil stuff all day long. We're on the same page. You're even better at diving down those rabbit holes than I am, mate. You're the master of that stuff.
Yeah, it's sometimes you've got to step back from it a little bit too, as well. So we touched on living in Thailand. We're done with that. You want to do?
No, mate, go back
how
to
I ended up there.
Whatever you want to talk about, brother. And sorry if we go off track. It's like
all over the place.
I just want to have a casual chat,
That's right. And you talk about one thing, and then you feel like I want to go keep going with that, but then
another door opens.
So I ended up going to Thailand a couple of times, and I really enjoyed it. And I eventually, I tried some stem cell treatment over there in one of the hospitals, which didn't really work. And then I went back there because I thought I wanted to see if I could live there, because it's a nice place. It's hot. I like the heat, and it's cheap. And it's just laid back, and I thought I can live there, and that's why I ended up going over there, and I basically with the intention of living there. And then where I was staying, I met Lex. She had a vegetable shop that she'd built up from nothing, and she had that for about 14 years when we met. And after we met, we expanded the shop a little bit.
What does a vegetable shop look like in Thailand? Is it like going into a veggie shop here, or is it the same type of thing?
No, well, it was an outside marketplace, so around the side of the building and across a little bit of the front. And it was actually an optometrist shop next door, and so she rented that outside space off the guy that owned the hotel behind, but he actually owned the whole block. And so she paid the rent there, and they fed electricity of a night time, because she was open. This is a little outside. She was open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Wow.
And she had I think they were working 2 12-hour shifts. She had people. She had a brother and sister and a few other stuff. And so when we kind of met, it was like pretty old school, and I was actually going past one day, and I needed somebody to stop and eat because I bought something to eat, and there was a counter at the fridge at the back end of their shop. And so I asked,
and sorry, was this what city is this?
In Pattaya.
Pattaya. So, mate, was it wheelchair friendly around the area?
Not really, no. There were some wheelchair toilets and stuff, but you'd be going along a footpath. And then the next thing, there'd be a power pole in the middle of the footpath, and the gutters were like this high. You had to bounce over them or go and find another way around. But it was good. It was still relaxing, and I enjoyed it. And
obviously I haven't been to those parts of Asia, but I spent a lot of time in China. I've just found people so super friendly and willing to help when you needed something. Did you have that same experience there at all, or?
kind of initially, but then you can be fooled as well.
Okay.
Thailand's called the land of smiles.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say anything bad against Thailand because a lot of nice people and I met a lot of them most time. But there's also
so it was superficial.
Yes, can be,
Yeah.
And Lex the first one to say that, people talk behind your back and put a knife in your back, while you're smiling at you or something. But it was good. I really enjoyed it and the business. And she worked really hard, long hours. And even after we got together, the optometrist shop next door didn't want to retain their lease. So the owner of the guy that owned it all said to Lex, "Do you want to take the optometrist shop on a lease?" And she said to me it was her dream. So I came home and figured out, I was doing self-managed super and all that kind of stuff. So I figured out how to raise the money to take a 3-year lease because she was just paying rent outside on a weekly, monthly basis. So we took a 3-year lease on the shop, put some fridges and shelves and everything in it, and set it up as like a more a convenience store, like a mini mart type thing. And that was going. It was all. She used to work there. I had a little room out the back where I'd sit and watch the internet and stuff. And we ended up getting I bought a little Honda Zoomer X 110cc, put a sidecar on it. So we'd throw the wheelchair on the sidecar and I'd ride the motorbike and she'd sit on the wheelchair in the side. We'd go and load it up with, what the Asian country want, they load up motorbikes and stuff. And we were doing that kind of thing,
My first night ever in China, I had no idea what to expect. And we were staying at the China Hotel in Guangzhou. And I'm just sitting at the window looking out there. I just didn't know anything about it whatsoever. And there was this massive freeway outside the hotel. All these cars were coming. And driving against the traffic, riding against the traffic, was this guy with all these water bottles on his push bike. He was driving against the traffic. He was obviously delivering water bottles to officers, going against all this mainstream major traffic. And I'm like, it blew me away. But obviously I got to figure out later that people are so creative in a lot of those Asian cities and how they just make things work.
Yeah. And so that was relationship wise, I guess what I would look back on before that is I'd had plenty of opportunities, I guess, to have decent relationships, but they always stuffed up either because of me or because of the other person. And I guess a lot of it was always my insecurity. It's like, why I had some like really attractive women interested in me. And I guess I was always thinking, well, I'm in a wheelchair, man. What do they want with me?
Why?
And it's like some of them, I know at least a couple of them, it's almost like they didn't even see the chair, really. And at the time, my own insecurities were probably my biggest enemy for a long time, dealing with that until I got to a point where, we just don't care what anyone else thinks or says, as long as you're happy with yourself and who you are, And when I met Lek, we just kind of connected. And even it's funny, there was like a ladyboy card reader clairvoyant over there had told us some stuff about who she was going to meet, and she said like someone short, and she's going, no, I like tall men. And Lek had been in a relationship, he'd been married to a Thai guy, and had she's got one son, and she'd been they'd been apart for a long time when we met, and anyway, when we met and we sort of clicked, and I met her family, and we went back up that first New Year's to her hometown up in Chiang Rai, where her dad was up there. We drove up there in like a minivan with a driver, and so her mum and her niece went up with us. So the four of us went up with this driver in a minivan. And I mean, to speak about someone with a heart, and I could only dream of having a heart like this girl. But, in these poorer countries, a lot of them see foreigners as money or a meal ticket or whatever. And I guess what I treasure, not treasure, but the thing that really impressed me, it was never about money. And the fact was that she didn't need me at all. She had her actual business was going really well. She was doing really well. Like she was paying all her staff 1,000 baht a shift. And in Thai money, the average money at the time was 300 baht a day. She was paying 1,000 baht a day. All right. And that's how good her business doing. And she was just sharing it. Right. And so, and when we went up we went up in the minivan and we stayed at her mum and dad's house up in Chiang Rai, even though they were living in Paddy. The house was sitting there and other people kind of taking care of it every now and then. But I didn't realize until I kind of knew. I said, well, you know, what's the deal with the driver and the van? She hired it. I mean, they would not have hired a van to take them up. She hired that for me because she was worried it was going to be too hard for me otherwise, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, the driver in the van, he sort of slept on the sofa or whatever at the house. And you know, when we got back from that, I mean, we've been together now for 9 years, and going back to what this lady boy Clairvoyant told, the short guy, and she's going, no, I like tall men. And one day the lady boy came to the shop to buy vegetables and stuff, and this must have been very early on, and something came up about me, and Lex going, it's not him, yeah, and we were already committed to each other, and she's going, no, that's him. Sure, because I'm in a wheelchair, but I'm actually 5'10", you know, 175 centimeters, and so that was pretty funny. So we'd planned to like stay in Thailand. She had a house over there that she was paying off that her mum and dad were living in. It was too far from the shop, so we rented an apartment that was just walking distance to the shop, 5 minutes. So we'd walk back to the shop because we were there probably 12, 17 hours a day, every day, 7 days a week. And if we wanted to take a couple of days off, we could, and shop would work fine. But we were pretty much there 7 days a week, you know. And and that's what we decided to do. And it was only then we got to the stage where we'd come back to Australia. I think we came back for 3 or 4 weeks the first time, and then went back. And then we got to the stage where we'd come out here for like maybe a month or two, and then we'd go back and work for 5 or 6 months at the shop, and then come back for another month or two. And 2017, when we were here, November 2017, I think we were here, and Mum had a ruptured aneurysm, and so she was in pretty bad way. And then so we basically spent pretty much all of 2018 here, taking my stepdad to the hospital and stuff. And when we went back to Thailand one time, we come back only for a week because we just had to visa restrictions and stuff. We come back and he was all stressed out, and he was so happy that we were driving up and down to driving back to the PA all the time. And then, you know, Mum went to Logan Hospital, and no one wanted to rehab her. They wanted to stick her in a nursing home, and we didn't want that. And so eventually she got into rehab down at Redland Bay, and she got home, and, you know, she's been doing okay. And through that, Mum and Dad had separated a long time ago. Dad was in Hervey Bay, and he wasn't really that well. And so we decided we'd maybe try and come back and look after him. And in that process of us going over to try and set the shop up, that we could do it from here with, you know, we had cameras and stuff, so we could always look at what was happening over there. And Dad had a fall and fractured his hip, and this is the second one. He did the other one, I think 2016, and recovered fine. This time he didn't, and so
you got to be there to help.
Yeah. So we decided to stay here then, because, you know, Mum and Annie are,
well, of course,
older.
But not to belittle that in any way, mate. But you brought her to a couple of Nick Phillips gigs, and I'd understand why she'd want to stay in the country after.
Yeah. So she really loved it here. You know, I mean, she's out doing TAFE, learning English, and then you know, got a couple of jobs, and she loves it here. You know, and she's got, you know, she's got 4 brothers and a sister in Thailand. That so Mum and Dad have got plenty of support over there. And she's, like she said, there's no one here close by for Mum and my stepdad. So, you know, we were quite happy to live here. And you know, at times I said, well, you want to go back? Do you want to go back to Thailand? I'll go back. I'm happy to go back. No, she said, no, I like it here. It's good. We'll stay here. And
how were you accepted by her family over there?
Yeah, pretty well. I mean, I got along pretty well with Mum and Dad, and I remember Dad when I first met him up in Chiang Rai. He used to speak a bit of English, but it was a bit dusty on it. But he did tell me that if you're going to be with a Thai girl, you've got to learn to speak Thai. And okay,
hey,
and so you know, yeah, nit noi a little bit. It's not easy. It's not easy. And through learning,
is it tonal? Is it like Chinese?
Yes,
Thai tonal?
Yes.
Oh, they make it too hard. They just make it too hard.
That's right. So, like, one word, ma, depending on how you say it,
can mean 5 things.
It can mean come, or it can mean dog, or it can mean horse.
Or horse. It's very much like Chinese.
So and through learning, I sort of come to understand how she's always saying like this English is hard, and I'm going, that's not hard, it's easy, you know. And then, you know, through TAFE and through her lessons, and she's got a tutor as well, it's like explaining stuff to her, and you're going, yeah, okay, I can see what you mean. We've got
And
words that are spelled the same.
yeah, it's Thai. The writing in Thai. One of the things I think that, like, China is currently obviously booming in the modern age, but it was held back for a long time, and I think a lot of that was because of, in my uneducated opinion, was because of their writing. Like in English, you know, the whole Greek kind of background and how our English evolved. You can sound words out, and you can figure out what things mean if you know the basics of the rules. Chinese, you just really have to learn like 20,000 characters rather than sounding things out. Every character means something and sounds like something, and it might sound like 5 other different things, but that character means something. And unless you have access to a teacher who could teach you those things, you weren't able to sound it out. Is Thai the same? Does each character, is it about characters, or can you sound out written Thai words?
I think there's like 3 main symbols in writing, and like 3 groups. So there's a group of male symbols, group of female symbols, and a group of ladyboy symbols, and they're all sort of put.
Okay, so the ladyboy thing is like a neuter thing, like in German. Is that a neutral type thing? Is
it? Well, I don't really know. I never figured it out, but that's what I learned when I was trying to learn, because I was going to a language teacher in Thailand to try and learn, and she was, I think she was a German lady, but she'd been living a long time. She spoke fluent Thai and other languages. And I'd go to a lesson, and what I'd learn, I'd come back to the shop, and I'd talk to them, and they're going, no,
what?
Don't understand what he's saying. It's like, so Lek got some English lessons over in Thailand. There was a lady that she went to university and studied, and she spoke English and Thai. And so Lek did a little bit of pre-learning over there. And then, you know, the stuff she's done here as well. And, you know, it's, I mean, it's good. We understand each other perfectly most of the time. Sometimes I go, I don't know what you just said, Darren. What do you
Well, Lex English is pretty good from what I've seen. Like, she's doing really well in English. Yeah.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. Mate, I really appreciate you having this chat. With this little project I'm doing, over the week, we seem to get 200 or 300 people watching it. You know, I hope that builds up, and I hope that we get more people on Rumble and everything. But
yeah,
I just want to hang at it to tell Tuesday nights. I'm mainly talking about mainly about music things in the music industry. Thursday nights, I want to talk about people's stories. And like, as I said, mate, you've been an inspiration to me, and to be able to sit down and chat with you about your story, I've learned so many things tonight about you that I didn't know, I didn't understand. And I hope that, you know, people will accidentally fall upon this stream, and they'll listen to it, and they'll get some inspiration out of it. And at worst scenario, we've been able to record some of your journey. If there's anything I haven't asked you or you'd like to talk about it, please keep talking. I don't want to put a stop to it. But I do want to do a little shout out to our sponsors, which is me. I'm doing a gig at the Hotel Metropole on April the 13th of my 70s Unplugged show. It's a whole thing. I've done up all these videos. I tell these stories about the songs that really influenced my life. The support act for that show is me doing a little set of my original stuff. And it's $20 to get in to see the show. I hope you guys will kind of follow the links around my different things and through the Hotel Metropole, come and see it. It's upstairs at the hotel, seats about 100 people. So there's not that many tickets, but if you could grab a table, that would be awesome. Next Tuesday night, Tuesday night, I'm going to be doing a what do you think session with my mate Tuffy, and we're going to be talking to a good a mate of ours who I've known for that lot. Well, I've known for decades, but haven't hung out with, a guy called Glenn Bidmead. Glenn's a musician in Sydney who was up in Brisbane in the late 80s, and it was a real inspiration for me watching Glenn. You know, I'd be playing I played Her Majesty's a lot, and Glenn played there, and I'd sit down and watch Glenn play, and I'd just be so inspired by what he was doing. And Tuffy recorded with Glenn on different projects, and we want to talk about our similar journeys. So going to be talking about with Glenn on Tuesday night. Next Thursday night, I'm still working out who I'm going to talk to. The Tuesday night after that, I'm going to be talking to Mark Higgins, who I was supposed to be talking about last Tuesday night, but he didn't join the stream because his phone got wiped out in a water drop and he couldn't contact me. So anyway, Mark is okay. Nothing happened to him. He'll be joining me back then. But yeah, please check out all the different links to the streams. My website is nickphillips.com. There you can find my albums, my bio, all the videos that I've released, stories about my journey. I'd love you to check that out. Mate, I'm so honored that you've joined me for this chat. Is there anything else you want to raise or bring up?
Not really. I don't think, mate. There's been things that we've talked about that we could have gone on for ages, and we've kind of gone around things.
I think we need to set up, and maybe in a couple of months' time, we need to set up just a Rumble stream once I get the numbers up on Rumble. A Rumble stream where we can talk about some of the rabbit holes we can dive down.
Sure.
And it sounds flippant when you talk about going down rabbit holes, but there are some really major things going on in our world at the moment that we should be talking about. There are politicians diving to get out of the firing range left, right, and centre at the moment. There are more and more lawyers and doctors and everything else coming out to talk about things that have happened over the last few years that are really going to change the scenario of what's happening. The lawsuits that are going to keep emerging are just going to change the structure of our society, I believe. We're getting more of an understanding of where big money, particularly from the American government side, is being spent. The alien invasion is probably pretty close because they need another Osama bin Laden somewhere along the lines. But mate, these things we can go down rabbit holes on. I think that's another chat on a different platform. But tonight, I just really wanted to chat about mainly your inspirational, how you've inspired me, mate. I don't want to say inspirational journey because you live with what you've got. I don't think you've got a beautiful woman beside you. You've loved music. You've done a lot of things. You've been blessed in many ways, but you've done it with a burden. And I think that's the story that a lot of people deserve to hear.
Thanks, man. I appreciate your comments. I never really think of it like that at all, but I'm surprised often when people say things like that, but obviously you were an inspiration to me as well with what you were doing, and having you do stuff for me is just like priceless. I couldn't, like, back in the day, I would ask Nick Phillips, who was a bit of a legend around town. And you were in your heyday back then, weren't you? In the 80s and 90s and stuff. And like Nick Phillips was a legend around Brisbane. And it's like, hey, Nick, give Nick a call. Hey, Nick, can you come and sing a song for me, mate? Yeah, sure, mate. Yeah. And there's probably, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 songs that you vocaled for me. And
we're just mates, mate. And that's the thing. Let's get over this bullshit and just get back to being mates. That's what our community needs. It's like some people, everyone walks their own journey, and we're all trying to do our best. And end of the day, it's just how can you work together? And if you can sit down and have a chat and have a beer and just like not get caught up in the bullshit. I'm really hanging out for those days properly. Let's just get back to that.
I think, you're right. I mean, back when I was sort of more involved with the music, I had a lot of people help me out, and I just still never, I could never believe how generous people were with helping out, and
mate, they were generous because you're a nice guy about it, You weren't. Be serious. You weren't a dickhead. You were like a nice bloke, and you'd be just a friend, and you're very genuine. And that's just the way it all works. And I think if people can judge each other on if a bloke's or a lady is a decent person, you get on with them. If they're a jerk, wipe them off. I've had a lot of people I've just shut the door on because they've been jerks.
Yeah,
but I've been blessed to have certain people in my life who've been wonderful people, and I count you as one of those. And it's probably time to wrap this up. I've gone, we do our little thing. But if you can come back in a few months when I get the numbers up, hopefully on the Rumble thing, and I'd love to explore, because you really do some good tracking of what's going on around the place. I'd love to talk to you about that on Rumble, but maybe it's not a Facebook deception.
Yeah.
And let's do that. But brother, thank you very much for sharing your time and to be so willing to talk about what you've gone through. I will wrap up with this. You were telling me the other day about what you're doing with your current doctor visits and what they're doing with the robotics.
Yeah.
To me, there's a lot of people scared of what's happening in technology at the moment, but there's also a real lot of positives. We actually live in the best times ever as far as what we have access to. You know, giving birth to a child does not necessarily mean it's a dangerous death sentence scenario. You know, we have doctors and medications that usually work pretty well. And they're developing those things around spinal injuries and everything else. Mate, can you just cap this off by telling us a little bit about what you're going through now with your treatment that hopefully will get you walking?
Yeah, I don't really have any huge expectations, but it's an interesting technology they're using. I think it's called RoboFit, and it's like there's a frame, I guess, that goes over your feet, your legs, and that, and gives you support. And that's hung off a machine, and they can program the robotics to make the movements that you would make in walking. And the idea is that it helps stimulate muscle memory, helps stimulate activity in your body to maybe try and get some better movement. I think I only understood today because I had to get a bone density scan, and the lady that did the scan explained to me that over the years we all lose a bit of density in the bone, but if you're not using your lower limbs, it's like your brain or your body is telling that you don't need to build any density on your hips or whatever because you're not using them, you know. So that weakens more and more. And through this process, I don't know, just hopefully to get some more activity. I had a session today to just discuss and get ready, and next week I think is the first time they're going to strap me in the robotic frame and see how we go, you know. And you know, who knows? Hopefully it'll help and do something. But it is
I'd love to
interesting.
catch up in the future and get an update on how it's going, if you don't mind, because
yeah,
I think it's amazing. And I'd love to see you walking into one of my gigs soon.
So would I, mate. So would I.
Mate, I'll give you a call after we finish just to catch up, but I'll end the stream here. Thanks a lot for your time, Harry, Hotwheels,
aka Reggie the Weekend Rapper.
Reggie the Weekend Rapper. Greg Coulson, that's right. Thanks, brother. Cheers, mate.
All right, mate. See you, Nick.
See ya.